Hello, everyone. Today, we begin the life-changing and powerful story of a man who shaped the entire world with his ideas, Aristotle. This is not just a history lesson. This is a journey through the life of a genius, a thinker, a teacher, and a dreamer. And yes, this story will also help improve your English listening practice. So listen carefully, learn deeply, and feel every moment of this powerful story. Now, let's go back in time, to the moment when Aristotle's story began. Part 1. The Boy with a Big Question. Let me take you to a small town in ancient Greece. The year is 384 BC. The town is called Stagira, and a baby boy is born to a respected family. His name? Aristotle. His father, Nicomachus, is a doctor, not just any doctor, but a personal physician to the king of Macedonia. His mother, Phaestus, also comes from a noble family. That means Aristotle is born into a home of learning, knowledge, and science. But Aristotle is not like other boys. He doesn't just play. He doesn't just laugh. He doesn't just follow the crowd. From a very young age, he begins to ask questions that make adults stop and think. Why does the moon follow us when we walk? What is the meaning of life? Why do some people become kind and some become cruel? He's always thinking, always asking, always wondering. And even at the age of 7, he starts to read books on medicine and nature. Not comic books, not fairy tales, real books about the body, the stars, plants, animals. But then, something tragic happens. His father dies. And not long after, his mother also passes away. Aristotle is just a boy, but now he is alone. Orphaned, no father, no mother, only questions, only silence. But instead of falling apart, he chooses something powerful. I will not let pain destroy me. I will turn pain into knowledge. He moves to Atarneus, where a guardian takes care of him. But his heart is burning with dreams, not of money, not of war, not of power. His dream? I want to understand everything. When Aristotle turns 17, something big happens. He travels to Athens, the heart of learning, the most famous city in Greece. And there, he walks through the doors of Plato's academy. Yes, Plato, the student of Socrates, the master of ideas, the greatest philosopher alive at that time. Aristotle becomes his student. And that changes everything. At the academy, most students just listen to Plato and take notes. But Aristotle, he challenges him. He questions him. He doesn't just want to learn. He wants to understand. When Plato says, reality is only a shadow, the real world is in ideas, Aristotle asks, but what about the trees we touch, the sky we see, the people we love? He believes reality is not just at the mind, it's in the world around us. The birds, the rain, the soil, the stars, the people, the feelings, the logic. He starts writing, studying, watching. He studies plants, animals, stars, and behavior. He writes about ethics, biology, politics, poetry, logic, and science. Yes, all of it. Plato once said, Aristotle is the mind of the school. Even though they don't always agree, Plato loves him because Aristotle thinks for himself, and that is what true greatness is. Aristotle stays at the academy for 20 years. Yes, 20 years of learning, questioning, teaching, and growing. But then, Plato dies, and the academy chooses a new leader, not Aristotle. So, at the age of around 37, he leaves Athens. But he's not broken. Sometimes, when one door closes, it's only because a better door is waiting for you. Aristotle is invited to Macedonia, remember? That's where his father once served as royal doctor. Now the king of Macedonia asks Aristotle to teach his son. And that boy's name? Alexander. Yes, Alexander the Great. And just like that, the greatest thinker of Greece becomes the teacher of the greatest warrior in history. What does he teach him? Wisdom, ethics, leadership, respect for knowledge, and the value of truth. Alexander grows up not just with strength in his arms, but strength in his mind, because of Aristotle. Part 2. The Rise of the Master. But before Alexander picked up his sword, he picked up Aristotle's books. Before he led armies, he was led by Aristotle's wisdom. And during those years together, something incredible happened. Imagine this: Aristotle and Alexander walking side by side in the royal gardens. Aristotle pointing at a tree and saying, "See the leaves? Nature is a book. Learn to read it." Or sitting by a river and Aristotle asking, "What is justice, Alexander? If you become king, will you chase power or fairness?" Alexander was learning not just how to win wars, he was learning how to rule with wisdom. And Aristotle? He was preparing a leader who would change the world. After tutoring Alexander for some years, Aristotle returns to Athens. But this time, he's not a student. He's a master, a thinker, a writer, a teacher. He is ready to create something of his own. And so he builds the Lyceum, his very own school. But this is not just a building with books and benches. This is a new way of learning. At Plato's academy, students would sit and listen. But at Aristotle's Lyceum, they would walk and talk. Yes, it was called the Peripatetic School. Because Aristotle believed learning should happen while walking, discussing, questioning, and experiencing. Can you imagine that? Students walking through gardens, debating ideas, asking real questions about real life. What is happiness? What makes a good life? What is the soul made of? How do animals think? What makes a government fair? Aristotle didn't give simple answers. He gave students the tools to think for themselves. Now listen to this carefully. While teaching, Aristotle was also writing. A lot. He didn't just write about one subject. He wrote about everything. Biology. He studied 500 species of animals and plants, describing them in detail. Ethics. He asked, what makes a person good? Politics. He asked, what makes a city strong and fair? Logic. He created systems of reasoning that are still used today. Poetry and drama. He wrote about emotions, storytelling, and human character. Physics and astronomy. He explained how the world and heavens work. It's like Aristotle had 10 minds inside one body. And his belief? All men by nature desire to know. He believed the purpose of life was to grow the mind, not just to make money, not just to survive, but to understand. And that belief became the soul of his school. Word about Aristotle spread like fire. People from across Greece, even other parts of the world, came to Athens to hear him. Some were rich, some were poor, some were leaders, some were farmers. But in the Lyceum, they were all students, all hungry for truth. His writings were kept safe by his students. Some of these writings were lost in history, but many survived. And for over 2,000 years, his books have been read by kings, scientists, philosophers, and presidents. His book, Nicomachean Ethics, named after his son, is still one of the greatest books on how to live a good life. His politics became a foundation for governments. His logic shaped how people build arguments, solve problems, and debate ideas. But even for great thinkers, Life is not always fair. After the death of Alexander the Great, people in Athens began to hate Macedonians. And Aristotle? He was from Macedonia. And now some enemies accused him of disrespecting the gods. Aristotle could feel the danger. He remembered how Socrates, his teacher's teacher, was forced to drink poison for teaching new ideas. And Aristotle said something powerful. I will not allow the Athenians to sin twice against philosophy. So, he left Athens. He escaped to a small city called Chalcis, and there, in the quiet, he spent his final days. In 322 BC, Aristotle died. He was about 62 years old. There were no big celebrations, no statues, no awards. But something much bigger remained. His ideas, his spirit, his way of thinking, his legacy of questions and truth-seeking. Part 3. The Man Who Touched the Future. We ended Part 2 with Aristotle's death in the year 322 BC. He was gone. But something strange was happening. Even though his body was gone, his mind was still alive. His words were still speaking. His ideas were still moving. It was like he planted thousands of seeds. And now, slowly, those seeds were beginning to grow, all across the world. Let's now understand. What did Aristotle leave behind? Why was he called the master of all who know? And why, even after 2,300 years, we still remember his name? Aristotle didn't write books like modern authors. He wrote lectures, notes, and manuscripts. Most of his work was written by hand. And guess what? He wrote over 200 books in his lifetime. Unfortunately, many of them were lost in wars, fires, or time. But around 30 books survived. And they are more than enough to see his genius. Here are just a few of the topics he wrote about. Logic. How to think clearly and avoid confusion. Biology. How plants and animals grow, move, and survive. Ethics. What is right and wrong? How to live a good life. Politics. How should a society be built? What makes a great leader? Rhetoric. How to speak, influence, and persuade people. Poetry and art. Why do we love stories? What is beauty? Metaphysics. What is reality? What exists? What is truth? His writing was not boring. It was sharp, practical, and clear. He wanted to help people understand the world, not just imagine it. He once said, "Educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all." That was Aristotle. Not just facts, but meaning. Not just knowledge, but wisdom. Before Aristotle, people had opinions. After Aristotle, people had logic. He invented a system of thinking, using reason. Let me give you a simple example. All humans are mortal. Socrates is a human. Therefore, Socrates is mortal. This might sound simple to you now, but at that time, no one had done this before. He created the rules of thinking, rules that are still used in universities, courts, debates, and science. It was like Aristotle gave the world a toolbox for the mind. Aristotle didn't have a microscope. He didn't have a telescope. He didn't have the internet or satellites. But he observed. He watched birds fly. He studied fish in water. He opened animal bodies and wrote about their parts. He made detailed notes on 540 different species. He wrote about reproduction, growth, blood, bones, and behavior. Yes, some of his theories were wrong, but the most amazing thing? He was the first person to treat biology as a science. Before him, people believed strange myths like frogs were made from mud. Aristotle said, "No, life has a pattern, life has a cause. Let's study it." He believed in evidence, observation, and classification. That's why people call him the father of biology. Aristotle didn't just want to know what is, he wanted to know what should be. He asked, what makes a good person? What makes a good city? What brings true happiness? He believed happiness is not found in money or pleasure. It is found in excellence, in living with virtue, in using your talent to the fullest. He created a system of virtues, like courage, honesty, justice, and friendship. And he said, the goal of life is not just to live. It is to live well. In politics, he didn't support kings or tyrants. He supported a government that serves the people, not just the rich or powerful. Even today, when people talk about democracy, law, freedom, and justice, they are walking on Aristotle's path. After Aristotle died, his writings were passed from hand to hand, from student to student, from country to country. Then something amazing happened. Many years later, Muslim scholars in the Middle East found his works. They translated them into Arabic, studied them, and kept them safe during a time when Europe was going through wars and darkness. Later, European scholars translated them into Latin. And boom! A new age began. Aristotle's ideas sparked the Renaissance, an explosion of science, art, and learning in Europe. Even the greatest minds of history learned from him. Galileo Galilei, Isaac Newton, Leonardo da Vinci, Thomas Aquinas, Albert Einstein. Yes, even Einstein once said, Aristotle's method of thinking still lives in science today. Think about this. Aristotle lived over 2,000 years ago. He never had a phone, car, or electricity. But even today, we study him. Even today, his ideas are in our schools. Even today, he helps us speak, think, lead, and grow. His name appears in textbooks. His logic appears in computers. His ethics appear in debates. His spirit appears in every curious mind. Because Aristotle taught us one simple truth. The more you know, the more you realize how much there is to learn. Part 4. The Eternal Voice of Aristotle. So, now, you know the boy from Stagira. You know the student who learned from Plato. You know the teacher who taught Alexander the Great. You know the philosopher who built his own school, wrote hundreds of books, and explored every corner of the human mind. But there's still one more part of the story left. Because even though Aristotle's heart stopped in 322 BC, his voice never stopped speaking. Even today, his voice is still alive in the minds of those who think, question, and grow. Let's now discover how Aristotle's ideas shaped our modern world, why his thinking is still used in science, business, and leadership, and most importantly, what you can learn from him to live a powerful, meaningful life. Aristotle didn't just write books. He created entire subjects. He didn't just answer questions. He created the way we ask them. Here's what he is still called today: the father of logic, the father of biology, the father of political science, the father of ethics, the father of psychology, the father of literary criticism. Yes, one man, so many roots, so many branches, one single tree of knowledge that keeps growing. Even today, when a lawyer builds an argument, they use Aristotle's logic. When a scientist studies an animal, they use Aristotle's method. When a leader makes decisions, they use Aristotle's ethics. When you read a novel or watch a movie, the storytelling structure was first explained by Aristotle in Poetics. He once said, "We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit." This one line, written over 2,000 years ago, still inspires students, athletes, CEOs, and creators all over the world. That's the power of a mind that never dies. The school Aristotle built, the Lyceum, no longer exists as a building. But its spirit, it's in every classroom, in every university, in every group of people who gather under a tree, sit in a circle, and ask, what is the truth? Aristotle believed that learning is not memorizing facts. It is about understanding why. That's why he walked with his students while teaching. He believed knowledge should move, like life. Today, teachers still say, let's learn to think, not just to pass. They may not realize it, but they are walking on Aristotle's path. 3. Aristotle and the power of speech. One of the most beautiful gifts Aristotle gave the world was the art of rhetoric, the study of persuasion and speech. He taught that if you want to influence people, you need 3 things. 1. Ethos, trust. Show you are honest and know your subject. 2. Pathos, emotion. Touch the hearts of your audience. 3. Logos, logic. Give clear reasons that make sense. Even today, these 3 are taught in public speaking, marketing, business, and politics. So when you stand on a stage and speak with clarity, passion, and truth, you are using Aristotle's tools. Now let's make this personal. You've listened to Aristotle's story. You've traveled through his mind, his ideas, his school, and his dreams. Now the question is, what can you learn from him? Here are the most powerful and easy to understand lessons from Aristotle, written just for you. Lesson 1. Ask questions without fear. Aristotle never accepted answers blindly. He always asked, why? How do we know? What is the truth? In your life, don't be afraid to ask deep questions, even if people laugh, even if you feel alone. Because every great mind began with a small question. Lesson 2. Train your mind daily. Aristotle believed that the brain is like a muscle. If you don't use it, it becomes weak. That's why he studied, wrote, debated, and observed every single day. So you should too. Read, listen, write, speak, practice English, think deeply, every day, even for 30 minutes. That's how the mind grows. Lesson 3. Happiness comes from virtue. Aristotle said, happiness is the reward of excellence. That means happiness does not come from luxury or laziness. It comes from doing good work, living with honesty, helping others, using your talent, improving every day. That's a life of meaning. Lesson 4. The middle way is the best way. One of Aristotle's most famous ideas is the golden mean. He said, too little is weakness, too much is danger. But balance, that is virtue. For example, courage is between cowardice and recklessness. Generosity is between selfishness and waste. Confidence is between doubt and arrogance. So, in your life, always seek balance. Not too much, not too little. Just right. Lesson 5. One life. Live it wisely. Aristotle believed that life is not for wasting. He said, the ultimate value of life depends upon awareness and the power of contemplation. So slow down, think. Don't chase everything blindly. Choose your purpose and give your energy to it fully. One life, one chance. Make it great. 5. The final truth. Why Aristotle still matters. Aristotle never wanted to be famous. He didn't care for gold or thrones. He just wanted one thing. To understand. To understand why the sky is blue. To understand why people hurt each other. To understand what makes a good life. And in trying to understand everything, he gave us a map, a light, a guide to live wiser, kinder, and deeper. Even if the world changes, even if technology grows, the human mind still needs direction. And Aristotle gave us that direction. He helped us think better, live better, be better. So now, you've listened to the life of one of the greatest minds in human history. A poor orphan boy from ancient Greece, a student, a teacher, a truth seeker. He didn't have power. He didn't have wealth. But he had something more important. A mind that refused to stop learning. And now, that mind is inside you. Every time you read, speak, ask questions, or train your brain, you are keeping Aristotle's spirit alive. So don't stop here. Keep going. Improve your English every day. Train your thinking every day. Become wiser every day. Because one day, people will ask about you. Who taught you to think like this? And you'll smile and say, I listened to the story of Aristotle.